Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back for another episode. This is Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and you are listening to the Networking RX podcast. I am your host. Thanks for tuning in today, certainly in the past, and thanks for subscribing if you have. If you have not, please consider subscribing. It's great to have a loyal base of listeners, and when you subscribe, whenever a new episode comes out, it will drop down to you. You're insured of having the latest and the greatest from the Networking RX podcast, and we have a lot of great interviews with thought leaders and authors and people who work with people in the professional relationship, business networking space, researchers. And we have a lot of great interviews with people who have used networking and relationships to really drive success. And so you can learn a lot from them. And then you have shows such as this one here, where it's just me sharing about things that I see out there that I think are worth sharing with you, and just kind of giving my insights and sharing from my experiences. One of the people that I have gotten to know over the course of the last couple years in podcasting is a gentleman out of the New York City area, Adam Connors, and he has a business, and he has a podcast as well. His business is NetworkWise, and his podcast is Conversations with Connors. Very insightful. He's just been very instrumental in connecting me with people, and he has a lot of very useful information for people who are getting started with respect to networking. He's got a whole certification program, which is really kind of interesting. But he's got a lot of interesting articles on his website, and one that I stumbled across, I guess I would call it his blog, but one I stumbled across on his website I thought was really interesting, kind of scary. You know, we've been through a pandemic. We're going through a pandemic. We're heading out of a pandemic, hopefully, knock wood, if you would. But we are in, and have been, and will continue to be in an epidemic. And the epidemic is loneliness. Adam wrote a short article on his blog. He may have talked about it on his podcast as well. He may have had a guest. I know he's mentioned it at least once. But talking about this epidemic, this loneliness epidemic that we have. And this is dated February 28th, 2018. And, while that might sound old, I don't know that a whole lot has changed with respect to this. I'm certainly going through this pandemic. The loneliness situation has probably only gotten worse. But at any rate, it says, according to the U.S. Surgeon General, this is Adam writing, Dr. Viken Murthy, loneliness is an epidemic and a serious health problem. Now, Adam will quote Dr. Murthy, M-U-R-T-H-Y. It turns out that loneliness is associated with reduction in your lifespan that is as severe as the lifespan you see smoking 15 cigarettes a day. In other words, loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And Adam goes on to talk about this, is that loneliness really becomes a problem because we have this technology-driven world. People kind of live in Facebook, and we just don't necessarily connect with one another. And this might be something, and I don't necessarily know. This might be something that has been going on for generations. Loneliness. uh, um, you know, we get married, we have kids, our kids grow up and they move away, and people might have a spouse, and that spouse might die, and then we just don't necessarily have people. And I think part of I'm not disparaging Social Security, but a lot of what Social Security has done prior to Social Security, we depended upon our kids to kind of take care of us in our old age, and so you had at least one, maybe more kids who kind of lived around to kind of take care of you. We took care of our kids, and they're going to take care of us. And then Social Security came into play, and Social Security has been a great thing for a lot of reasons. But one of the things that it's hurt us on is kids will now look at their parents and say, well, mom and dad are taken care of through Social Security. I don't need to worry about mom and dad, so I'm going to move away. I'm going to get a house in the mountains or in the ocean or whatever, and mom and dad can fend for themselves. And one of the spouse dies, and it's a situation of loneliness. And this is a real health concern. Christine Parakas writes in her book, The Resilient Leader. She talks about, the notion. I interviewed her on the podcast last year. She talked about surviving 2 hurricanes down in the British Virgin Islands, and she realized as she was going through these traumatic events, literally the roof being ripped off her house, her hurricane-proof house. The windows and doors held up, but the roof didn't. But at any rate, she realized in that moment that, you can have thousands and thousands of connections and followers, but in that time of need, dire need, we really need people in our lives that we can reach out and hug and shake their hands and do whatever. And we'll get back to all of that soon enough. And so it's the loneliness thing really kind of plays into it, because you can kind of fool yourself. And I'm certain there are people out there who aren't fooling themselves at all. They're just lonely. They wake up and they watch TV, and that's really their companion, and they don't really talk to anybody, and it's really kind of a corrosive sort of a thing. And Adam goes on to say, in fact, it is actually quite common, has become so prevalent in the modern society, that the United Kingdom recently appointed a minister of loneliness. Yes, you read that right. They had a need to create a role to combat loneliness, and it certainly can be a problem. It certainly can be a problem. Adam, Adam is quoting the Commission on Loneliness. Feelings of loneliness affect us all at some point, but being lonely can become a serious problem when it becomes chronic. A day-to-day reality, which over time can grind us down, affecting our health and well-being and damaging our ability to connect with others. We need others in our lives. We're human beings. We need others in our lives. Telephone calls are great. Zoom calls are great. Those are all wonderful things. But we need people in our lives. And, networking can certainly help us with respect to that. I've heard these conversations about loneliness. I'm committed to not being lonely, committed to trying to figure it out. I think Uber is huge from that standpoint. I'm thinking of a time when I can't drive, when my wife can't drive, just being able to go to the store and be amongst people, and that counts, right? Being able to get to church, that counts. Self-driving cars will be huge, and I commit to staying involved in my kids' lives and staying involved in the community, because I know the toxic nature of loneliness. I don't want to be lonely. I won't be lonely. I will commit to it. I will figure it out. And I'm committed to just continuing to give to other people, so that provides a means for me to be connected. And it's just something I'm kind of committed to, like I'm committed to getting 10,000 steps a day and lifting weights and doing those things, eating well, drinking water. Those are things that I'm committed to, and I think everybody should be committed to health. but as a part of being healthy is not being lonely, is being associated with other people. And we do live in a better time where we can be connected with people. Recently, I brought my daughter to her first job in another city, and it was hard because we were going to be apart. And I just reminded her that this is different than it was 30 years ago. It was different than when I went off for my first job or went off to college, because being connected to your family was a whole different thing. And so we can text, we can talk, we can FaceTime, we can have that connection. And God willing, she's always in my life, and my boys are always in my life, and they will be for the rest of my life. And hopefully, God willing, that's a long time from now. But we need to make sure that we have other people in our lives. Make sure we be involved in a church, or and if religion's not your thing, that's fine. I'm not saying you need to take religion just to avoid being lonely, but there are things out there. There are community centers. There are things with respect to being involved with schools, sharing your talents. A bowling league, a golf league. Those things are all important. Card clubs, building a puzzle. I think really the power of nursing homes. The nursing homes probably add years and years to people's lives, because they help people not be lonely. They help people connect. I don't know that I want to be in a nursing home, in assisted living or senior living. Maybe it comes to that. I don't know. It's easy to say when you're younger that you don't want those sorts of things. But I just, I want to be connected to the world. I want to be connected to people, and not ever be lonely. And I certainly hope that for everybody listening, and it's got to be a commitment. It's got to be a commitment of you to be connected, not just from a professional sense, but a personal sense. And really look at it as much as being networked and connected to people and having relationships is important to the productivity of your business. It's also important to your overall mental and physical well-being. I want to wrap this up by sharing Adam Connor's final paragraph in this. It's a short piece, and again, it's on his website, NetworkWise.com. While loneliness doesn't just disappear overnight, you can change your mindset and outlook on networking for better results in building valuable connections as you interact with others, which can help in feeling less lonely and depressed. It's our nature to create a bond with those who share similar values, and getting ourselves out there to foster relationships for a strong network can be extremely beneficial in fighting loneliness. In short, have people in your life.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today, and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.